Hi.
Hey, what a beautiful smile to start with.
Hello. Hello. I love coming in like this so we get the authentic hellos.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it is a pleasure to see you again.
Aw, same, same. You're such a warm energy, Richard. I always
Oh,
love being in connection with you. Yeah.
well, thank you. And speaking of thank you, at the very beginning, I want to thank you for these awesome videos you've been putting
Ah,
together. Your contributions to the conference each year are
mm,
immense.
mm.
I know Jonah appreciates it, and I sure do too. The name taking care of the charts, that's a lot of work you put into this. So, on behalf
Well,
of everybody, we really
oh,
benefit.
thank you.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Well, in transparency, it's self-serving.
Mhm.
And it's self-serving for my process, and it feels like it's serving the community. So that
Mhm.
feels like it's a win-win because I want to get a sense of who's here.
Mhm.
And by having the name badges or having the charts out there, then when I'm with somebody, I can be like, where's your chart? And so
Yeah.
it's like, here's your tool that I
Yeah.
offered. So it checks a lot of boxes. And I really appreciate the recognition. That's sweet.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, great to
Yeah.
hear. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
here's the official screen that I like to show at the beginning of interviews for the High Desert Human Design Conference that's happening this September, so weeks away in the year 2024. And we've got various dates the week of the 18th through the 22nd. And then there's actually the post as well. So Jonah can
Yeah,
tell you all about that. Are you involved in the post this year, Richard?
I am. I
Mm,
am.
awesome.
Yeah, there is so much going on. It is so exciting. And it really feels like, I feel like for myself, it's kicking off today with the Virgo new moon. We're in the cycle as of this evening. Um, but as I was, sharing my gratitude to you and so many others, Jonah has just been working tirelessly,
Yes,
relentlessly. He is a force of nature, that guy.
100%.
And this will be the fourth year, and it is going to be mind blowing. I mean,
Yep.
I've been to two, so this will be my third out of. I missed the first year,
Yep.
um, but they've just gotten bigger and better. And this year, I just can't even imagine how great it's going to be. So many diverse speakers, and the amount of input that's coming from all across the globe. It's just extraordinary to see something grow so much and so vibrant. It's so quickly.
Yeah. And I'm curious, since you're speaking to the new moon, I know that was a topic we wanted to talk about because we're literally recording, right?
Hmm.
It's at really close to the apex of the new moon. And,
Yes.
for those who will engage with this interview on the sooner side, do you want to speak to what this new moon encompasses or what we can be invited to plant seeds for?
Yeah, sure. Be happy to. Yeah. So yeah, we'll keep it fairly brief. Brandy and I actually did. We typically do new moon and full moon reports, usually
Yeah,
about. Yeah, and we did that. It's on our YouTube page, Emerge by Design.
great.
But just briefly, be happy to share a few things that I find very exciting about the cycle that we're entering today. This is exact. It's 7:55 p.m. Mountain Time Zone.
Hmm.
This is our eighth new moon of the rave year. And if I pan back out just a little bit, because I think this is really helpful because it really pertains to what I think is possible for everyone at the conference, which is that if we go all the way back to the rave New Year chart back on January 21st, 22nd, I forget it, it's always one of those days.
Uh-huh.
We had one individual channel activated at the rave New Year. It was the channel of the perfected form. So
Oh.
one individual channel. And the first six new moons after that were all heavily individual circuitry oriented. We either
Hmm.
only had an individual channel, or there was two new moons where there was no channel, but the moon was in an individual gate. So we've had this very active individual circuitry each cycle. It's just been overwhelming to see this pattern. I've never seen it like this before.
Oh.
I really think that this is part of the precursor to 2027. We're getting the vibes of what this huge evolutionary shift is about. And a lot of it, as I'm saying, with these transits, seeing these focal points of the pattern being individual. And to take that one step further, and then I'll move into this chart just a little bit, We're going through, as we all know in the globe right now, just incredible change,
Mm,
dynamics, unprecedented. We can go as far back in history as we want. It's hard to find
mm,
this much on our plate, right, as a species.
mm.
And so we know this very turbulent. Well, there's one of the things contributing to that is that all three outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, are all at the end of their sign. You got Pluto at 29 Capricorn right there, Neptune 29 Pisces, Uranus at 27 Taurus. And they're all in retrograde at the moment, and they're doing their, forward, backward that they do. So over the next couple years, and Pluto sooner, by the end of this year, all moving to the next sign. And so when we have outer planets changing signs, even just one of them, that's a big deal. But to
Mm.
have all three of them doing that, and now while those three outer planets are doing this slow transition to their new signs, and that's kind of a whole topic per planet, per sign. But they also, all three of them are in individual gates. So we've got
Oh.
Pluto in gate 60, where it's been for a couple of years. We've still got about a year to go. Neptune in gate 25, which is retrograde also. Neptune will dip his toes back into gate 36 for a while, but then come back to gate 25. So again, we're talking another year or two of that. And then Uranus in gate 8, which will also go back into gate 23 before coming back into gate 8. But to have and they're also, if you look at the astrological wheel, they're forming a trine between Pluto and Uranus. And
Oh.
then Neptune on the left is sextile to Pluto and Uranus. So it's kind of what looks like a mini grand trine. It's not a grand trine. It's a trine with two sextiles.
Mm,
So all of that to say that it's very turbulent, it's very dynamic, but we are moving into the next couple years where the three outer planets will be in a more supportive,
mm,
smoother energy, formation. And so we're going somewhere. I just don't know that we have obviously the picture yet. We're not sure. But I definitely can say that if we just look at those three gates that these outer planets
mm,
are in, can really start to get a story, which is a lot of what Brandy and I like to do with our mythological work. And we think about Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and
mm,
transformation in gate 60. We can really sense not only globally, but also possibly individually. It always matters how these are hitting your own chart, but just overall,
mm.
we're experiencing the underworld of limitation and what shadow work needs to be done. What is our greatest fear, doubt, insecurity? How do we alchemize that? How do we move beyond, at gate 60, accept, transform, and mutate? And we have Neptune in gate 25. So it really feels like, our spirit of our higher self is going through the ring of fire as Pluto moves through gate 60.
Mm.
And with Uranus in gate 8, the gate of contribution in the channel of inspiration, it's incredibly fertile period of time for going inward. So
Mm.
even though the world is so like we're fixated on all these problems out here, what the chart I think is saying at a deeper unconscious level is, why am I here now? What is my personal creativity that I came to impact my world? We can't necessarily change the whole world, but we can change our sphere of the world. And so I'm really excited about that. It is a daunting period of time on our planet,
Mm.
but we're alive and breathing. We're here for a reason. And I think the chart is saying, okay, let's go inward. Let's heal ourselves. Let's
Mm.
find our gifts and talents, and let's share that with our own purpose and inspiration. And so for that kind of work, you couldn't ask for a better period of time.
Well, and what I'm hearing or what's coming to me as you're mapping this out or highlighting and articulating the qualities is I was getting this sense of like, an earthquake, how
Mhm.
like the tact or the whatever those plates are, when they
Yeah.
like rumble, it's
Uh-huh.
almost like, are they rumbling from the cosmic realm, So I think that
Yeah.
kind of flipped on its head a little
Well, and
bit.
that's a great image there because Pluto is one of the main characters in this larger story.
Mm.
And when you speak of earthquake or the earth opening up,
Mm.
that's a very plutonic frequency
Aha.
because that's where Pluto is. In fact, in part of the myth of Pluto and Persephone, who was the daughter of Demeter, and this, as the myth goes, Persephone was this beautiful maiden frolicking in the garden, picking flowers, and the earth opened up, and
Ah.
Pluto came up and abducted her. took her to the underworld. And then as part of the arrangement for her mother, Demeter, to get her out of there, she could come up to the above earth, and that's when we have spring and summer. But because
Right.
she ate some pomegranate seeds, she had to spend so many months in the underworld. So that whole image you just shared is like, yes, we are going through
Yep.
a very global, collective, and individual transformation of the highest order right now.
Right. Well, and
Yeah.
as you're speaking of the, the turmoil that's maybe on the in our view outside,
Mm-hmm.
it's that, can I stay with the core of me?
Yeah.
Can I have my anchor of truth and self and compassion and love, all of those elements, while I'm maybe that reed that's blowing in the wind? So if I can bend and move with the reed as opposed to a really rigid stick or really rigid branch, when the wind comes, it's going to snap.
Oh my
So
goodness. That
yeah,
is so good.
yeah.
I've been sharing that in my transit reports about
Ah.
flexibility right now, being flexible and adaptable. Of course, we're talking about following authority,
Mm,
just in general,
yep.
creating a softer, more yin presence to what's
Hmm.
happening, to be open and flexible and adaptable. Being rigid right now, trying to go backwards, metaphorically going back to the past is not possible. And so, yeah, I think you're right on target. And in fact, I think you could tie what you're sharing into this new moon in Virgo,
Mm.
because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and this is the sign of the Virgin. It speaks to the purity of the self.
Oh.
It's associated with the sixth house, which is the house of self mastery.
Mm.
If we look at the astrological wheel through the 12 signs and the 12 houses, we start with Aries, and by the time we get to Virgo, we're 6 signs in. And the next sign is Libra, where we move into the duality and the other, because Libra is about relationships and finding self through relationship. So the sixth house, where Virgo is sort of the final step before the outer. It's almost like the
Mm.
bottom part of the wheel's lower trigram and the upper part of the wheel's upper trigram.
Mm.
So Virgo speaks to self-mastery. It's related to our health and the details, our habits. It's a very conscientious sign, and we know that it's a great sign to get things done.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about all this very stimulating year that we've been in, some really big astrology. I mean, really big year, and
Mm.
relative to other years, all astrologers are all sharing this type of thing. It's really big. But we can look to this Virgo new moon and think, okay, well, I want to do what you're sharing. I want to be grounded, but I want to be flexible. I want to feel my truth. I want to have tranquility on the inside and passion on my outside. Well, Virgo is really good to put things in order, right? To focus on those details, take care of the body, notice patterns, what do we need more of for self-nourishing? What do we need to let go of? Habits that are no longer serving us. And so Virgo's a great sign for that. Now, it's ruled by Mercury, as I said. And so Mercury is the planet of communication and intellect. Mercury helps our sun energy integrate and shine out into the world. But when we're talking about this conference, what a great sign for the conference, right? Because it is so intellectually stimulating. We're going to have new topics, new ideas. It just sort of really fits the theme I see for that. And then as well, Mercury, who's now moving forward, spent most of the month of August in retrograde, but is moving forward now. He is in moving through the third. He's moving through this part of the chart for the third time. He went
Mm.
forward, stopped at 4 degrees Virgo, went backwards back into Leo, and now he's moving forward. So we call this the shadow period. So Mercury's moving forward to the end of the shadow phase. So this is a great time to discover things.
Mm.
Mercury moving over this same portion of the chart for the third time, we can find things. We can see the missing details. What did we miss a month ago that
Yep.
by stopping and reanalyzing we can find? And so that's all happening. And one of the most significant aspects in the new moon chart is Mercury is trine to Chiron. And this is the third trine in the last few weeks, because he went forward in trine, backward in trine, and now forward. So there's a real communication right now between Mercury and Chiron, which would be in gate 42, line 3. So it's in the gate of growth and evolution, part of the channel of maturation, which is so much part of our hero's journey.
Mm.
Finding the growth and expression through healing those things that, we all have something in there. to alchemize that and move forward. So very supportive in that regard. Of course, we've got the channel of community,
Mhm.
which is another just awesome channel to have for a month like we're having. I mean, I'm already meeting with conference people. We're
Ah,
already
yeah.
doing all this background work, so we're getting together more than normal. So I can really feel that sense of community. And you have the channel of logic. We have Saturn retrograde in gate 63 and Mercury in gate 4 at the new moon. And so here again, we've got this logic frequency in the background within the communities we're working and living and serving in.
Mm.
And I think Saturn's doing a really important job up there in retrograding gate 63 because he's offering this restructuring to
Mm.
how we logically look at the world. Well,
Mm.
when we go through a cathartic healing process, our logic does change. It must change. Our story must change to match the new frequency with which we've entered, right?
Mm.
So I think all those are super supportive, not to mention the outer planets I talked about. The only one that's a little challenged right now in the chart, Mars in gate 15 is squaring Neptune at the new moon,
Oh.
about to move into Cancer. As Mars moves into Cancer and is there for the rest of the month, Mars in Cancer, it can be really wonderful for fighting for things we care about, taking care of our home and family and ourselves. So Mars still has that fierceness in the Cancer water sign where he's heading, but it's not as overtly, right?
Mm.
He's not as when he's in a water sign, he's not good at swimming. But I think it can bring a softer quality. So that's what I'm getting at with the Mars square Neptune. It is help putting our energy into the mystical here, into the spiritual of what Pisces and Neptune as the ruler of Pisces offers. So I think it's a very fun lunar cycle. And then if you'd like, I could briefly go to the full moon.
Yeah, go for it.
Keep going.
Yeah, please.
So this is 2 weeks later. This will be on Monday, September 17th. So it's also in the evening. I don't think my chart, I didn't put the time on it. It's around the 8 o'clock hour, something like that. On Tuesday night, which is the night
Ah,
before we kick off on Wednesday morning for the
right.
conference. So we're going to have a full moon ceremony at Ray of Light's house. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
awesome. We were cleaning up the property this weekend. It's going to be fantastic full moon ceremony. But when we look at this chart, wow, there's a lot happening here. Okay, this full moon is a partial eclipse,
Mm.
and eclipses always bring the unknown, a bit of kind of a mystical, the idea, in ancient times, they were very ominous. They always heralded bad things.
Mm.
Our consciousness has evolved. Now that we know these are regular astronomical events, we can predict them with accuracy. They've kind of come to have a little bit of different meaning. Typically, we would think with eclipses, something is illuminated that we didn't see before.
Mm.
Maybe some information comes to light that when it happens, we're like, oh, I should have known. But maybe the eclipse helped bring it through one of the luminaries going dark. It actually illuminates something we
Ah.
need to know. But it certainly brings that extra frequency of we're in the eclipse portal with this one because we'll have another one on the next new moon after this full moon. So
Ah.
it is a partial eclipse, and you can see the full moon's in Pisces, and it's nestled right between Saturn and Neptune. So again, I'm thinking all this mystical nature of this conference. What a wonderful place to have the moon. She's does so well in water signs, linking up with Neptune, the ruler, and Saturn providing that structure. Now, I want to go back to Mercury real quick because we had the Mercury trine Chiron on the new moon. When we get to the full moon, Mercury is in Virgo and he is in his home sign. And so, again, that's really supportive for a conference venue,
Oh,
right? The
yeah.
exchange of information. It's Mercury in his home Earth sign. So it speaks to the embodiment of what we'll be doing, which is another big push this year, or something new, I think, is how many embodiment sharings we're going to have, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
really excited about because it's the getting this human design knowledge into our body is what matters. So
Yeah.
really supportive there. And then what I'll mention there too about Mercury, he's opposite Saturn and he's square and a half to Pluto. Well, Mercury and Pluto, they get along really well. Mercury was the messenger. He moved to the underworld back and forth all the time. He often was carrying the helmet of invisibility that belonged to Pluto. Pluto he's comfortable there. Him talking to Pluto, he did it all the time. That was like, he was the one that could do that. So what I see here with this square and a half to Pluto in that gate 60 is whatever's going on deep down in here, it has a chance to get out. This Mercury, it's a dynamic frequency as a square and a half, which is a lot like a square. It's frictional, but it's through friction we experience growth. And so there's a communication with the square and a half Mercury to Pluto, and then opposite Saturn. Saturn, again, bringing this stability, this container, this structure into gate 63, this gate of doubt and the logic. And then we also have, Mercury's in 64. That's what I meant to say. Mercury's in 64. It's Saturn in 63. Well, when you think about 63 and 64, that's a whole nother mystical conversation. 63 is after completion. 64 is before completion, but it's the last gate. It's part of the cross of consciousness. So I just think to have that 63, 64 activated at the beginning of the conference, it's really supportive. I just think it really opens up this Plutonic, Neptunian, mystical environment of sharing with Mercury what everybody's bringing to the table.
Well, and what's standing out to me as well is I'm linking back to the conversation that we had in my pre-conference interview with Brandy Jordan, where she was talking about that this year the conference is in its fourth line.
Yes.
And so to see in, the human design transit chart that the sixth line is in the fourth gate, like there's something that feels overlapping and supportive there.
100%. These are the kind of funny things we come across when we look at transits. You can't make it up. Like, it's the fourth year and it's a fourth line full moon at the start. Like, those are the kind of things I see all the time with transits. You just chuckle. You're like, that's so fitting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Was there more you were going to say about the full moon, or can I ask questions?
Yeah, questions. Go for it. Yeah, that's all.
So I'm curious if you want to talk about the workshop that you and Brandy are offering free the conference, so it's not a part of the ticket if somebody's signing up. Because there's something that's here that I'm sensing that feels, how did you guys plan this? Like in the embodiment element, because I've signed up for your intensive, and what really struck me, I hope this is comfortable for you all that I'm saying this, but I was a little in my head like, I've done LYD twice.
Yeah.
I'm on the path to be a guide. Why would I do the beginner portion of this? And when I felt myself, so my sacral was saying, there's something here. And I'm taste cognition. I'm also taste PHS. But when I tasted Brandy's container work last year, I was like, this woman's a powerhouse. I want this. And so hearing about this embody your design variation of LYD, deep container 2-day intensive before the conference, and then it's on a full moon, that's eclipsing. I'm like, do you guys have all the snuggles and tissues there? Because I might be a mess.
Yeah, we definitely will. We're so excited about it. It's going to be amazing. It's a beautiful venue that we're holding it at. Where the idea sort of originated was even last year. I met a couple of people that had come to the conference, but they were still pretty new. And you and I know, I mean, it can be overwhelming for anybody, just the options, and you want to see it all. And it's electric. It's Uranian electricity at these conferences. And so we thought, well, as this is growing, it might be really supportive to have a container where people can get really grounded in their body, in their authority at a deep somatic level, just prior to walking into this fire hose of mystical information that we're all going to be drinking from. And then so we're excited just that there's something like that to help really set people up for what comes next. But then beyond that, Brandy and I are so excited to be doing this together, because this is the first time we're doing a live event for this emergence. And what we're bringing is this. One, I've been teaching at Human Design America for 10 years now, and I've been teaching the foundational year that entire time for IHDS. And we have really evolved this course far beyond where Ross started it with the foundation of how he set up the foundational year. but with Jenna Oblivion and Lasita and myself, we've really been developing this course. So it's really reached a new level. So
Mm.
I'll be bringing that analytical, strategic, left mind approach of the information shared and a new frequency of language, I think is how I would say it. And then, as you know, Brandy's bringing in this somatic side. So we're
Right.
going to go back and forth. We're going to learn with our ajnas a little bit, but then we're going to take that information right into the body. And so I think it's just, yeah, we're thrilled to offer. So happy you're going to be joining us, and
Yeah.
still have room. If anyone else is listening that would like to join us, we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
It should be really fun.
Yeah. I guess I don't have more questions about the eclipse. Like it feels like it's a preparing moment
Hmm.
for us. And maybe back to the new moon conversation
Yeah.
to anchor ourselves in whatever way that is. You know, if people aren't coming into the pre 2 day intensive container with you and Brandy, as you come in, finding your way to ground. And also, I've heard this through Jonah's voice, really letting your authority guide you with, you know, which workshops or which speaker present or uh talks you feel drawn to attend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's been giving some great advice on the Telegram, which is true. I loved one he said the other day: if you're having fun, stay where you are.
Yes. Yes.
This
Yeah.
fear of missing out
Right.
is something to be aware of, to just recognize I'm where I'm supposed to be, as you're saying, to follow your authority. I really think having some daily, and that's why I'm, again, excited that there's going to be the Qigong and there's going to be
Mm.
multiple embodiment spaces, and also just to relax, but to really stay grounded as best one can. Uranus, I didn't mention in this full moon chart we're looking at, but Uranus is part of that bigger story I mentioned at the end of Taurus. But he's also in the sextile and trine to the sun as well as the moon. And so he's very connected. So we're still getting this really exciting electric Uranian energy in that gate 8, which is, again, really one of
Mm.
the most creative, expressive gates there are. So all that's supportive to the conference. But again, with all transits, what does that mean for me and my authority? Right.
Yeah.
And I just really want to echo what you're saying. Being grounded each morning, whatever your little routine is, could be really helpful, because it's going to have a lot of air, Uranian energy, and it's just easy to get lost out there in the excitement and
Yeah.
feel overwhelmed and get a little too exhausted. But anyway, it's really going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That was brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So what I thought we would do next is talk about your chart. Does that work for you?
Sure.
So up on the screen, I have your chart.
Uh-huh.
Can you orient us to how you and Human Design found each other those days ago and
Yeah.
how you're here now?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, one thing I'll share for the listeners out there that may not know, that are coming to the conference, but Ra spent a lot of time in this area in the
Mm.
early 90s. So, just a few years after he had the experience with the voice, he was just getting out across the globe in those initial years when he was first making contacts, setting up workshops. And he came to Taos, New Mexico in the early 90s. And so it's just so fun that we have this really thriving community building in Santa Fe, just down the road from Taos. And it matches with the fact that this area was one of the first places human design hit the planet in
Mm.
that sense. So I moved to New Mexico in 1997, and in 1999, through a friend, I had a chance encounter and I met one of Ra's students. His name was Ed Stanton, and again, I wasn't looking. It just was. I was actually going through my Saturn return. It was right at my Saturn
Ah.
return, so I was going through some fairly dynamic structural shifts in my life, as most of us do around that time.
So you
And
were
so I was
bumping,
like,
you were still in your third line. So you were
yeah,
bumping into somebody.
yeah, I just bumped into him, and I've always been. I'm a Sagittarius rising. I love knowledge and travel and anything that can go in. I really enjoy that. So I was like, I'm open. Like, I don't know what it is, but let's hear it. So he did the reading, and like most people, I was like, what? How do you know all that? So anyway, I became fast friends with Ed. started studying with him immediately. It was sort of just like there was one other girl with me. And so the two of us tutored with him every day, multiple weeks, on and on and on. So at that time, I took everything I needed to do to get certified. And
Mm,
in 2001, I was certified as an analyst. And I worked with Ed for a couple of years, but then he passed away. So for the
mm,
early 2000s, I was really on my own. This was really pre-internet. Everything was handshake, word of mouth, and
mm.
I used to get the cassettes from Raw. I mean, this is how far back we're going.
Right.
I'm hanging out with Ed, and he'd call me up, and he'd be like, "Hey, I got a tape from Raw. You got to come over. We'll listen to it." And we would, but I mean, that's when I did my analyst recording, it was on a cassette. I mean, it was
Mm,
a ways back there in the rearview mirror. But to fast forward, so early 2000s, I'm working with human design every day. But I also got into a career in the corporate world, and I was a corporate sales trainer or manager.
uh-huh.
I actually have done that for like 20 years. So human design was my passion side hustle, but
Mm.
I was doing it all the time. And then in 2010, I met Genoa and Lasita from Human Design America. And by that time, the IHDS school had been in full swing. And he was like, "You should do this again. I know you did it with Ed, but you ought to see what we're doing." So I went through the whole program again for
Ah.
several years, got certified, and then started teaching with them as well. So I still teach there every week. And then I had my Chiron return, which is kind of a big deal for six line folks. Well, for everybody, really. But
Yeah.
I think, again, we're really brought into the focal point. And that was about 3.5 years ago now.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I left my corporate job for good and started doing this full time.
Mm.
And so now doing it not only with Human Design America, but also with Jonah on Signpost and with Brandy at Emerge by Design. So I've
Got
got
it.
multiple prongs going on right now and loving every second of it.
Well, I'm curious, can I ask you questions that
Sure.
relate to your chart?
Hmm.
So before I ask that question, and I can cut this question out, I'm curious. Jonah said to me at one point about you having a military career.
I did.
And I'm
Yeah.
curious, like that was before human design.
Yeah.
And where would you say you track, if you do, your military career with your chart?
Yeah. Great question. And I went into the Marines after college. I was in for 7 years. I was
Well,
in the infantry and the force recon, which is like their special forces. So I look back at that 30 some years ago now. It's very much like, wow, that was a line three. Like that was a different
uh,
life. I mean, I was a real gung ho warrior, unrecognizable in some ways to the person I am now as
uh-huh.
a peaceful, spiritual oriented, but it was an incredible experience. It really was. I'm very grateful for my time there. And in my chart, it's a little easier to see actually in my astrological chart
Oh.
because I have Mars, the god of war, in the
Hmm.
first house conjunct my ascendant, and he is in a square to seven of my other planets.
Ah.
And now that Mars is in gate 10, line 6,
Ah.
and I have my design Mars in gate 34, line 3. So I have Mars in both channels of exploration.
Uh-huh.
But that Mars with all that dynamic square energy is very Martian oriented. I'm very physical. So even after the military, I've owned adventure travel business.
Mm.
I'm in the woods. I'm a raft guide, a mountain guide, like mountain climber.
Got
If
it.
it's an adventure in the outdoors, like that's my thing because it really my Mars is oriented towards that. So that's how that military part happened, even though, yeah, I certainly would never do that now.
Well, but I'm also curious if I'm hearing you're 35, 36, like in the
Yeah.
military with
Mhm.
infantry, like who knows where you're gonna be shipped or sent to?
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
then go
Moving
ahead.
from one, I'm always moving from one cycle of experience to another. That's for sure.
And then the 1858, was there a placement or was there a fire in you around we got to correct some shit?
Yeah. That's really how it works. It's like you have this channel of exploration of following my convictions, being really grounded in my life force energy that gets connected through intimate relationships, which is really the
Hmm.
foundation of my life is my intimate relationships. And through those, I end up having experiences that are channel of transitoriness. Both of those 35 and 36 are line three and it's unconscious. So it just
Uh-huh.
happens, it's always a surprise to me. But then through going through these transitory cycles of emotional experience, I can often be invited for that channel of judgment. So
Mm,
it really kind of looks back at the experience that I'm in. And it's like, where's the pattern? Is this healthy? Is this sustainable? Can we make it better?
right.
I have my design sun in gate 52, design earth in gate 58. So half of my incarnation cross is tied up with that split with the channel of judgment
Right.
and the gate 48. So yeah, it's really the logic and the abstract are so polar, but in my chart, they work together when I'm in alignment.
Right. Well, in my 34 is 34.5, which
Hmm.
is the powerful destruction.
Yeah.
So anyway, that just has me giggle sometimes, or when I first learned it, I was like, yeah, I like to destroy shit, you know, in a powerful way. The other thing that my eyes are drawn to is, 46.6, your personality sun. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious, it's activated on both sides of the chart, and maybe you feel this storyline stronger through your astrology. And I'm curious, could you speak to how you know or how you express and sense your 46.6?
Yeah, yeah. So that gate in the G center there called pushing upward in the
Mm,
original I Ching, and it's the determination of the higher self.
mm-hmm,
It's very closely associated with the solar plexus because it is part of the abstract circuitry.
mm,
So 46 speaks very much to being present to cycles of emotional experience. That pushing upward really is about being present in the body. It's called love of the body.
mm,
And so it's about going through the cyclical nature of the solar plex experiences, but being present in the determination to experience the higher self.
mm-hmm.
I have line 6, which is called the line of integrity. And
Oh,
so this has been a life journey for me that because this all ties into the tripartite life of my incarnation cross. And
right.
it speaks to honesty and integrity of the body in the experience, honoring the body, honoring others that are part of the experience with me, and speaking with integrity. And I'm also, that line is in Libra. So I'm also a sun sign Libra.
Mm,
And this idea of relationships and finding oneself through relationships in Libra. But with Libras, the challenge for Libras is can often be one of people pleasing.
mm,
They don't want to rock the boat, right? It's like they really want everybody to get along, even if I have to self-sacrifice. So that
mm,
becomes sort of the cross to bear for Libra sun sign people.
mm,
So for me, with the 46 line 6, I experienced that a lot where I wasn't always telling the whole truth, right? Like
mm,
I was cutting corners, sort of the white lie, never malicious, not like a liar, just like not really expressing my whole truth as a
mm.
result. And that's been part of what my journey's been about.
Sure.
But what I can share about coming off the roof, and I'm so excited to meet other six line beings who've been
Mm.
in human design and had some time, because I've been observing this now for 25 years, knowing this was coming. I'm like, am I really going to feel it? Like, what is it
Ah.
going to be like? Um, and I could say that at a very I hate to overgeneralize. I think we can get in real danger in human design by you've got this, then this if then statement, I think
Mm,
should be eliminated, right? We need to hear each person's experience to
yeah.
get full validation. And we'll have lots more line sixes coming off the roof to get that from. But I have felt it. I mean, it has been a
Mm,
physical shift.
mm,
Again, I had life changes that have brought me into the forefront of my community now. And I have this sensation it's like if I lie, I die. And I think
mm,
that's what Rob was saying about six line beings that aren't prepared to come off the roof. Those little cutting corners, being too much of my line too much of a hermit, not getting involved, if I'm not sharing that full sense of integrity for myself, it affects my health like immediately. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's part of the fragility of six line beings coming off the roof, is that line of integrity, you could translate that to every six line of all 64 gates. It's a very six line theme, the hypocrite or the integrous virtuous one, right? And so
Mm.
that dynamic is part of all six line beings. And so yeah, not only did I have structural changes in my career and my work and my whole life, really, there was this period over the last 3.5 years where it's been changing. And I think that, these major life transits, the Saturn, the Uranus opposition, and the Chiron, there is a Saturnian element to them, right? It's a 7-year process to be fully integrated. So I'm just now so I feel like I'm halfway down the staircase in that sense, in terms of coming off the roof. But yeah,
Nice.
it's been a very interesting period to witness.
Well, and then also, the the six line gate, so 46.6, is looking at the next on the wheel. And so I
Hmm.
think it's also interesting the next on the wheel for you, I believe, is 10.1.
Uh, well, no, the 46 goes to the 18.
Oh, thank you. 18.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, interesting. And you have 18 too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've 18
So,
a couple of times. Yeah.
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other question that pinged to ask you from your charts perspective is how you notice this rightness, because you're otherwise three
Yeah.
parts left. So how do
Hmm.
you experience that one part right?
Yeah. So that is my environment is external markets.
Hmm.
And which is funny because I am also a two, right? 6'2". I love being a hermit.
Hmm.
I feel like part of this world on the internet was Zoom now.
Ah,
I can still be at home and still have a global external
right.
market feel. All my classes I teach have people from different countries and all that. So the internet provides some level of that even when I'm at home. But I mean,
Hmm.
I love like going to the Santa Fe market, like the farmers market, man. I
Yeah.
just hang out and watch and stuff
Uh-huh.
happens. So, yeah, I can certainly sense it. But I do
Mhm.
have a hermit side and I do love nature. I don't live in a market. I
Uh-huh.
like to go to markets, but I'm very comfortable in this Rio Grande Valley that I live in.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, thanks for walking us through your chart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I always find it interesting to anchor in somebody's chart as I'm experiencing their frequency or experiencing what they're bringing forward.
Yeah, well, on that note,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to ask this. I'd be happy to mention about the workshops I'm doing
Yep.
uh, at the conference because it kind of ties into what we're doing here, which
Great.
is, yeah, it's called Mechanics and Mythology, and this is the work I do where I use not only the human design system, but I use astrology as well, and I have
Right.
a great passion for both. I was in human design for almost 8 or 9 years before I ever even had an astrology reading. I had no
Mm.
astrology background, and wasn't even interested really. I was so happy with human design. I was kind of like, I've met the only thing I need, like this has the answers I'm looking for. Um, and I won't go into the story because it's too long, but I went through a really difficult Uranus opposition. My whole
Mm.
life fell apart. It was kind of not everybody goes through that. I don't want to scare anybody. Uranus opposition is not, it's a regular life transit. It's a little bumpy sometimes, but mine was not. Mine was catastrophic.
Mm.
My entire life went off a cliff. And so I at that time, again, I didn't really have a community like I do now with human. I didn't
Mm.
have other people that I could go to and help me figure out. Because if you look at my Uranus opposition chart, I was like, I've been staring at this chart. I do not see in the chart how this can be happening to me.
Ah.
But a friend said, why don't you go see this astrologer? And I did. And it was
Uh-huh.
one of the most profound hours of my life. He described everything that was going on in my life. And I was like, how do you know this?
Uh-huh.
So I got hooked on astrology then, and
Mm.
so have been studying it and working with it ever since. And I like to say though, for anyone that's new to hearing me, that I use these as two separate systems. Astrology's built into the human design system. It's
Hmm.
already like baked in. And I think it's perfectly fine that it works on its own. It's a standalone knowledge. But I like to use astrology kind of like a photographer uses lighting. I bring in
Mm.
astrology from different lenses, different perspectives to help find more context that the vehicle, the chart, the human design body graph is the form. This is our vehicle. It is the mechanical nature of our vehicle. But the astrology really helps tell the story, the context, the mythology, because we all have our own mythology that we're here to live out. And so I think it really adds a rich depth to the overall experience when we're looking at charts when we use both of them. And so that's what I'll be doing not only at my main stage talk, but also in the workshops, is just sharing some of the tips and tricks I've used over the years when I am working with both of these. And the highlights of that, one is the planets. Again,
Mm.
planets don't get a lot of airtime in human design. Rod did a little bit of work on them. We all had the keynotes, the one word keynotes. But when
Yeah.
you go through astrology, we have this immense history of millennia of stories and language. And that's how we've learned as humans. So we relate to stories, right? We love movies. We're
Mm.
having our own movie, right? We are
Right.
on our own hero's journey. We're the protagonist. And so astrology and looking at these planets, which are the imprinting agents that actually turn on the chart, we can go way deeper by looking at the frequency, the vibration, the mythological story of this planet, and where is it in the chart? What center, what gate, what line? We get a whole nother, again, depth to the story of what's going on. So that's what I'll be talking about in these workshops.
Wonderful. And then
Yeah.
there's the additional workshop that I don't believe you've referenced, and that's the one you're doing with Brandy on nine-centered communications or
Yeah, we're doing the
connections.
Nine Centered on Sunday. And
Yeah.
we have been doing a lot of work on that. We're also speaking at the Colorado Springs convention the week
Mm.
before, and that's our main stage talk there. We actually just had our book published on Amazon,
Ah,
um, Conscious
congrats.
Relating. Yeah, the art of conscious relating, because communicating in a nine-centered being, it's an art.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
takes time and patience and dedication. And so we, in our own relationship, we're both 6'2s. We've been
Mm.
learning and teaching ourselves, and so we're ready to share that. And so we're very excited about that workshop too. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
do
she's
you,
also doing she's doing the opening keynote speech on Wednesday.
yeah, yeah, I'm super excited by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious if you have like a learning or yeah, like something that stands out for you thematically or example or concrete wise, like not to bring in you sharing from, crossing any vulnerability lines, but what's kind of the learning that you've gathered in seeing the maybe different perspectives of seven-centered communications rather than nine-centered communications? I know it's a big topic, but I'm wondering if you can like anchor a nugget or anchor a something if that's a new thought for somebody.
Yeah, sure. You bet. And again, if you like this topic, please come see us, because we're going to
Yeah.
have 2 hours basically to go in depth, and you'll get to hear from Brandy. If you haven't met my partner, Brandy, please do. She is
Yeah.
force of nature as well, so mystical and incredible. But we
Yeah.
would share that, this major shift, seven centered, is very Saturnian. It's very structural. It's very paternal. There's generally an authority somewhere in the relationship. So we know seven centered
Mm.
relationships, we're talking about rules,
Uh-huh.
authority, expectations. It's a rigid, it's just a different model. Well, now
Mhm.
as we're moving into nine-centered relating, each person is their own authority.
Mm.
Each person is their own leader. And they're in a relationship with another person who also has their own authority, who is also a leader for themselves, their own role model in that sense. So it's really a new paradigm where we have this equality. You can think of it in the yin and yang as well. It's we're elevating the yin back to where she should be in this idea of nine-centered relating. So it's a more harmonious, balanced, but it doesn't have the rules, the expectations. I mean, we're talking about, total freedom to be you
Hmm.
and still exist in a relationship. Well, that
Hmm.
almost sounds like a frictional dichotomy in itself, because it is.
Right.
So the word we like to use is called frictional harmony,
Mm.
because when we're attracted to people, there's chemistry, right? And so it's always smooth in the beginning, right? Everybody
Right.
loves falling in love at the first, but then we know there's going to be friction. In fact,
Yeah.
part of what we're attracted to are people that we unconsciously think can meet our needs that weren't
Mm.
met when we were children. So every great relationship is going to have friction, but it's that friction, if channeled in a harmonious way, can be self-supportive to both individuals. And so this idea of moving from seven-centered to nine-centered. It's a huge shift. It's something that pertains to all of our relationships, of course, not
Mm.
just our romantic ones I'm
Yeah.
speaking to, but work, friends, neighbors, you name it. We're moving into a new paradigm. And I think those of us in this community can be examples of that. We're here to show the world this is what future relationships can be about. And they're about total honesty, no
Yeah.
holding back, no half truths, no, it's like real honesty. It's not something we're used to in this world. We're always sort of sugarcoating, color coding,
Yep.
working around the edges because we're not comfortable with the truth all the time. And so nine-centered relating requires that we are communicating at all times all of the truth we have to share.
Yeah.
So all of these things are, I'm saying them quickly, but they have big ramifications.
Yeah, we could, yeah, each one of those could be the one focus of the workshop. Yeah,
Yeah.
what I'm tracking or what's coming to mind is um somebody I'm in close connection with is emotional authority single definition, and I'm emotional authority split definition. And it's
Mhm.
like I watch their process, and even having emotional authority, it's like they're getting there faster. They're getting to their articulation, their clarity, their naming of a situation faster than maybe I am. So
Mhm.
that's another interesting dynamic that I've noticed in my process. And I'm curious because I'm not in close connection with somebody who's an undefined solar plexus. Because I think
Uh,
that's another, we have all of the things.
yeah.
And sometimes I find the different activations or definition lends itself to its own timeline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. For sure.
And I was noticing this is dropping into name here too. I was noticing, I think on Instagram, I wish I had saved it, but the person was saying, I'm married and I'm committed to the connection and I'm committed to myself and they're committed to themselves. Like the paradigm, maybe historically or currently for some, is we're committed to each other, but they were
Right.
wanting to make the distinction that first I'm committed to myself, and then from there, can I be committed to our connection? And that's what we're feeding. That's what we're romanticizing or zhuzhing and nourishing and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's nine-centered relating right there. Committing
Yeah.
to yourself first. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, as we kind of bring our conversation to a conclusion, I'm curious if there's anything post-conference you want to point to? Can people join a newsletter? Like, what would be a best way to kind of hear what's evolving and alive for you and or you and your your work partnership with Brandy and what you guys
Yeah.
are putting out there? Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, we'd love to just have people sign up for our email list and
great.
newsletter so we keep them abreast. We have so many things coming out. We've mentioned most of them between the Colorado Springs Conference, the HDHD, the 2-day workshop. I've got a planets class actually that's on October 26th. It's going to be
Mm.
a 1-day intensive workshop on the planets. That's like a part one. If people want to continue, the next part two will be going into individual charts where we'll be taking each planet and
Ah,
going into the gate and line. But all of our information is available at emergebydesign.net.
great.
And please check it out. Sign up for our email list and love to include folks. We've got a couple of other online courses coming out at the end of the year.
Mm.
So we're just cranking creativity right now. We're really going with this individual keynote that is so prevalent right now is finding our creative voice with the work we do and how we help empower other people. So
Beautiful.
we're just having a great time doing it and look forward to seeing everyone that we know from before other
Right.
conferences, new people. I can already taste what it's going to be like there. It's just
Mm.
really going to have this electric feeling of camaraderie and fun. And
Mm.
I'm from Kentucky, but I've lived out here for 25 years. So this is my old school home. I'm like an ambassador for Santa Fe.
Mm.
If anybody has questions, I'm happy
Mm.
to give long answers about where to go, what to do. And in the post-conference retreat, I'm actually going to, I'm doing the river day. We're going to go float on the Rio Grande.
Mm.
And that's going to be the first day of the post-conference on Tuesday. But we're also going to do some other nature things, a camping night, and seeing a lot of other sites. So it's just going to be super blast. I hope people can stay after. It's a nice time to decompress
Hmm.
and to kind of do that reanalyzing, hashing out. I think I heard this last week. What did that mean? So it's real free flowing and soft in that energy. It's not like this yang conference energy. It's more let's hang out and rest, recuperate, and regurgitate what all just went on out over there.
Nice, nice, beautiful. Well, and I'm also thinking of your your the posts that you and Brandy do about the transits. Like
Yeah.
those have its
Mhm.
own rhythmic pattern on Signpost and then also on
Mhm.
the YouTube channel. So there's a
Yeah, to
lot of
merge by
content
design.
for those who want who want to
Yeah, yeah.
engage.
Thank you for mentioning that. I put out it's usually both of us doing it together. Sometimes I'll do the daily by myself, just depending on our schedule. But we present the transits in line with our lunar cycles because
Hmm.
that's why we're even talking about this new moon. Each new moon is like a chapter in the book of the year. And so
Hmm.
that's where we can kind of see the pattern. We can see what's going on. And that's where I wanted to remind everybody there's a lot of individual stimulation. And so that's why it's so deep. I mean, these transits are hitting us at the deepest unconscious levels of a being, and it's associated with our purpose, our truth, our inspiration. And that's where there's support from the transits to do that's where we want to be right now. If we're getting caught out in the external or the blame or the victim or something of that nature, it's incredibly disempowering. So that's why I love to look at transits. It just helps orient our awareness. We still always follow authority, of course, but we're getting more information on what sectors are being affected. Where's the downwind? That we want to align with the downwind breeze, kind of
Hmm.
idea, rather than raging against the wind. And the transits really help support us to do that. So, yeah, thank you
Awesome.
for mentioning those.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this is me, but astrology is kind of like it's a forest I can see that's out there, but I don't have that anchored information. And what I appreciate about how you guide or walk people through astrology or the transits is it's like I'm getting a little bit of that forest coming into view. So
Yeah.
I appreciate how you offer and present that.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Well, we'll see you super soon.
Yes, Name. And thank you so much for this time
Yeah.
together. Thank you again for all of your
Hmm.
behind the scenes efforts and can't wait to commune with you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, same, same, same.